Sometimes people think that if I just got a degree, everything would be okay. If I just had that skill set, I'd be okay. Don't get confused with that either. There's a great book out called EQ, Emotional Quotient, as opposed to IQ. It's juxtaposed to that, in other words. And what they found in the studies they did for that book was that in the formula that creates success, only 15% of what creates success is formal training in academics. 85% of what creates success is passion, perseverance, character traits and attributes, integrity, things like that are what cause people to win long term. It's not the next degree. It's not, if I just had that class, I would be over the top. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't. You need to get the class and you need to get the knowledge and grow. There's nothing wrong with academics. Learn. But quit thinking if I just gather up another degree, then I'll be successful. Success is more about other things than it is about just gathering up degrees in academics.
I hope you never stop learning. Long after this class, I hope you're still engaged with the world around you and the people in your life. And one of the ways you can do that is by studying successful people. Through books or even just conversations, you can really learn a lot about how somebody else succeeded. You can find hurdles they jumped or holes they missed, and you can not do that in your own life too. And that's what I've done the last few years. That's one of the reasons I love working with the Dave Ramsey team. There's so many talented people here that I get to learn from. And over the years, what I've learned is that there's 5 things that successful people always do. And I want to share those principles with you today. And as I share them, I'd love for you to write down an idea next to each one. What's one way that you can apply each of these principles to your life? So as I say them, think about your own life, in your own challenges, in your own opportunities. How do you do these things? Number 1, they start. Successful people always start. They're a group full of starters. They don't get stuck. They don't wait. They don't let doubt creep in and pause them and delay them. They start a new project. They start a new goal. They start a new dream. They're constantly starting because they know that you can never finish something you haven't started. And so they're always starters. Number 2, they fight fear. They have fear. Don't ever believe that you're the only one that has fear. Everyone has some degree of fear. Each new thing you try carries with it a degree of fear. But leaders, successful people, fight their fear. They admit it, they acknowledge it, and then they push through. They don't let regret and fear bog them down. That's the challenge about regret. It always wants you to give your present to your past so that you don't have a future. But if you want to be successful, you've got to fight fear. Number 3, they ignore haters. Granted, they take feedback, they take input, even input that might not be fun to receive. But at the end of the day, they know there's a big difference between input and hate. And they very deliberately put hate on the side. They move past hate because they realize that sometimes when you chase your dream, other people take it as a grand insult because it reminds them that they're not chasing their own dream, and they take it personally. Number 4, great leaders, successful people stay humble and hungry. That was a real surprise to me. When I joined Dave Ramsey's team, I got my dream job, if you will, and I thought, okay, dream jobs are kind of fun and easy, and you run through a field with flowers and a ribbon and lavender, woo! That hasn't been the experience. I've gotten up at 4 a.m. more than I ever have in my life for early flights or video shoots, and I hustle harder. Why? Because you'll always work harder at something you love than something you like. And successful people work on the things they love. And they also stay humble along the way. They don't put themselves on a pedestal. They don't think they're all that. They don't think they've arrived because they know that ego will damage what they're trying to do. And number 5, the last of all the things that successful people do, they give to others. They realize that in their life, they have things to give to others. Their time, their resources, their expertise. They go out of their way to support their community. They start groups where they can give back to others. They mentor people. They find ways to give to the people in their life. So that's my hope for you and I. As we look at our lives, as we think about how do I be successful? What does it look like to do work that matters? Let's keep those in mind. And I hope you wrote them down and wrote a few ideas by each one. How can you start? How can you fight fear? How can you ignore the haters in your life? How do you stay humble and hungry? And above all, how do you give to others?
Over the years, I've been able to talk to a lot of men and women at all different income levels and at all different levels of wealth. I've met people making $150,000 a year who are flat broke and up to their eyeballs in debt. And I've met people making $50,000 a year who are debt-free, building wealth, and winning with money. How is that possible? How can it be that someone's winning at money, only making $50,000 a year, while someone else is losing big time while they're making $150,000 a year? The answer may surprise you. I think I've discovered one of the most powerful, life-changing traits of the super successful. I think this one thing is so fundamental that it's impossible to be financially successful without it. If you grasp this concept, you can have virtually anything you want. You can be whoever you want to be. You can do whatever you want to do. You'll be able to save and invest and give more than you ever thought possible. Your relationships will be richer, they'll be deeper, and this is really one of the most powerful financial principles that I can think of. But most people totally leave it out of their plan and out of their life. What am I talking about? I'm talking about contentment. People don't understand contentment, especially today. Some think contentment means apathy or laziness. The world is addicted to bigger and better. So the idea of actually slowing down and enjoying what you have with a sense of gratitude before moving on to the next big thing, it's kind of a joke these days. When you're in high school, you feel like the whole world is open right in front of you, and it is. You feel like you can do anything and be anything, and you can. And you could go anywhere, and you could. All you have are options. That's great. But it can be pretty dangerous if you aren't careful. You could end up just pinning your happiness to different things out there in the future. You might say, I'll be happy when I graduate from high school. And then you graduate from high school. And then you say, I'll be happy when I get to college. And then you get to college. And you say, I'll be happy when I move out of my parents' house for good. And then you get there and you say, I'll be happy when I get a job and start making some money. And then you do. And then you say, I'll be happy when I meet that special lady or that perfect guy, get married and buy a house with 2.3 kids and a picket fence. Without contentment, your whole life will just be jumping from one thing to another, always hoping the next thing is going to be that thing that will make you happy. It's just not going to happen. Contentment is not a destination. It's not a place you get to. It's a manner of the traveling. It's how you do the journey. It's an attitude that influences everything you do with money. If you leave it out of your plan, you'll never feel like you have enough of anything. And trust me, that's no way to live.
As an author and a public speaker, I get to travel a lot. I spend a lot of time on airplanes, and sometimes I have really interesting conversations with the people I sit next to. I remember one flight. I was going from Dallas to Baltimore, and these two grandmothers sat next to me. They were probably in their 70s or maybe 80s. And during the flight, I gave the lady sitting next to me a copy of my book, Quitter. Now, I promise I don't do that on every flight. I don't wear cargo pants full of my books and go, oh, it's in my pocket. I didn't even know that was there. I'll sign it. Wall Street Journal bestseller. Please, no flash photography. It dries my pores. But I gave her a copy of the book because we were talking about dreaming and working on your passions. And she started to read it, which for an author is an awkward experience because you kind of sit there and out of the corner of your eye start to look and go, is it changing her life right now? Are her teeth already brighter with my wisdom? Oh, she got out a highlighter. But after reading for about an hour, she leaned over and she asked me a question. And it was a question I wasn't expecting. It was a question I didn't have an answer to at the moment. And this is what she said. She said, hey, what do you do when all the excuses that you use to not chase your dream are gone? What do you do when you're out of excuses? What do you do then? And suddenly there was this profound sadness on that airplane because for the first time she was looking back on her life and realizing that life had passed her by. It had gone quickly. And I started to think, how do you and I not get to that moment? How do you and I not get to 80 or 90 and look back on our lives and realize we mortgaged them doing things we didn't feel called to do, things we didn't love doing for 60 years. How do we not get there? Because life moves quickly, doesn't it? I mean, if you're a senior in high school, you already feel that, right? I mean, high school went by fast, and college is going to go by even faster. How do you make sure you don't miss life? And so I started to explore that question. I started to research that question. I started studying successful lives and unsuccessful lives. And what I realized was really surprising. Having a successful life, having an awesome life, if you will, only involves 5 things. You have to go through 5 different lands on this road called life. And I didn't create those, I just labeled them. They've always been there. And the first land that you enter if you want to have an awesome life is called learning. And during this stage, you try a lot of different things. You don't know who you are yet or what you're all about. You have a bunch of different jobs and a bunch of different passions. You have a lot of different friendships. Maybe you even move cities if you're out of school, and you change jobs and you learn, and you're new and you're an amateur, and it's okay. You try all these different things. The next step, the next season is called editing. You say, okay, I did these 100 things. These are the 10 that mattered most to me. These are the 10 I really want to explore. And you start to edit your life. You start to remove things that don't matter and focus on the things that do. In mastering the next step, you start to get really good at what you care about. You start to become an expert. You start to focus. As authors like Malcolm Gladwell have said, it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert. This is when you start to accumulate those hours and you get really good at that thing. And the next step, the 4th step, you go through a time of harvesting. All those decisions you've made start to come home. All those things you've planted start to come home. And in the 5th and last stage, you go through a period of guiding. You start to help other people down their own path. You start to reach back and pull people along in the same direction you went. Now, when you realize this, when you find that there's 5 lands, it becomes really easy to see how they work. I mean, for instance, the first 3 don't happen unless you make them happen. You won't learn, edit, and master by accident. Nobody wakes up one day and says, I'd never played chess, but all of a sudden, I'm a chess master. I can play chess like a pro. No, you have to be deliberate. But those last 2 stages will happen regardless of what you do. You will harvest and you will guide. You just might harvest things that people don't want to harvest. And instead of guiding and being somebody's mentor, you become a lighthouse indicating rocks you crashed your life on. You become what I call an anti-mentor, where people look at your life and think, I want to do the opposite. So that's what I love talking about, is giving you a place on that map, helping you see, okay, I'm in learning and here's what I need to do. Or maybe you're in mastering, but those are the 5 stages. If you want to be awesome, if you want to get to the end of your life and sit on a plane next to an author and say, wow, the years were important. They mattered. I changed my life and I changed the world. These are the 5 steps you have to take.